Hi all, John from WDM. I wanted to do a quick video on finding the right web designer for you and getting the best results from them. It's quite common to hear horror stories, and I've actually been on the receiving end of this, where you hire what you think is a great web designer and over time things begin to slide, you're not sharing the same vision anymore, and eventually things get to the point where they just break and you can no longer work together. The designer feels like they've been put out, you feel like you've wasted time, effort and money, and you don't have the product you wanted at the end to show for it. So I want to help you avoid those pitfalls, and so first up, let's look at expectations. It's important that you and your designer set the right expectations in the beginning. It may be tempting to go with that designer that simply says yes to everything without questioning deeper, but if they're not questioning, then they may not fully understand what it is you need. A good web designer will ask questions, sometimes awkward questions, but they'll give you a clear idea of what's possible and what isn't, either technically or within your budget. Most employers aren't familiar with the process of building a website, so if that's you, make sure there isn't a misunderstanding of technical difficulty between you. So how do you avoid this? It's actually quite simple. You just need to be very clear about the functionality you require and also be open to feedback so you know what's possible within the scope of your project. You never know, your designer may have a simpler and more effective solution. Web designers often plan their project into a schedule so they can be as efficient and productive with their time as possible. If they're working with smaller budgets, this may mean focusing on more than one project at a time. If you're trying to regularly communicate with them outside of any scheduled calls or meetings, you could actually be slowing things down and setting the project back. Try to deal with any questions and queries in an organised manner and make them part of your regular but scheduled communication. Similarly, if you're due to provide any files, images or content, try and stick to the agreed deadlines, and if that's not possible, then give as much notice as possible so that your time can be allotted elsewhere. Your proposal should be based around everything you talk about with your designer at the consultation stage, and the cost should reflect that. If you change your mind about what you need, this can affect the timeline and the bottom line. Most designers have their specialities and core skills, so it's not unusual for a designer to subcontract work out to others. So adding on work like this can end up wiping out any profits as they pay for work they hadn't bargained for. Having said that, it's quite rare that there are no changes once a project begins. As things start to progress, new ideas for design or functionality are sparked, and we hear that dreaded phrase, "It would be great if we could just..." This is called scope creep, and it can ruin a great project. This probably isn't what you want to hear, but the best way to avoid scope creep and keep the project on track is for the web designer to stand their ground. If you need new things that aren't within the scope of the project, then make it part of a phase 2. Having a phase 2 is a great way to get clarity and finalise your project, as it allows you to bring all those new ideas to life in a structured way, and you already have all the information from phase 1. Communicating your design vision across using just words can be extremely difficult, so get some visuals. One way to do this is to use Pinterest. With Pinterest you can create a board, and on that board you can add all the brands, images, colours and fonts that you like. If there are other websites you like the look of, this can also be a good way to communicate your vision across, but don't ask them for a carbon copy. Tell them specifically what you like about that website. Now this one is often forgotten, but technology changes so rapidly and the software that powers your website is no exception. If you don't keep your website secure and up to date, then it's inevitable that problems will start to creep in. Now you can do this in-house or you can have it done for you. Before you start your project, talk to your designer, as many won't stay on board for maintenance and aftercare, but some will do this and they'll handle everything for you. Now it goes without saying that your website needs to be fully responsive and work well on all devices, but in many cases now you may actually need a mobile first approach. So talk to your designer and see if they are able to offer this, as it's not something that everyone can do. Mobile first simply means that the design and functionality is prioritised primarily for a mobile, with larger screen sizes coming second. That's it for now. I hope these tips will help your next project go smoothly. Take care, and I'll see you next time.